guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Shannon Margaret B and I'm so happy to have you here. Today I have a little bit of a different video. I am doing a book versus movie review. I knew I wanted to do this because when the movie came out on Netflix, I had seen that the movie was going to come out for a while and I knew I had the book on my TBR and it was an anticipated read for me. So I decided to read the book and then immediately watch the movie after. So the book I did that for is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. So right behind me I have some of my Ruth Ware. So this was my 6th Ruth Ware book. And Ruth Ware wrote one of my favorite thrillers of all time, and that is The It Girl, which I don't think is a popular choice with everybody. I think it's more Turn of the Key or The Death of Miss Westaway, but I loved The It Girl. When the movie came out and I saw that Keira Knightley was in the movie, I was like, I need to read this and watch the movie and see what I think about the book to movie adaptation. So I'm going to break this video down into 3 parts. So the first one is going to be a book review, second one is going to be a movie review, and the third is going to be the book to movie discussion, which will have a non-spoiler part and a spoilery part right at the end, just because there are a few things that I want to talk about if you did read or watch the movie. First, let's chat about the book. It follows Lo, and Lo is a travel journalist, and after she has a break-in in the very beginning of the book, she kind of has to pull herself together to quickly get on this luxury cruise ship experience called the Aurora. On the Aurora, only about like 10 to 15 guests get to stay, and then you have your whole staff as well that is staying on the boat. So she's kind of going onto the boat to write about this experience. The person who was supposed to go was on maternity leave, I believe. So she gets the chance to go on this luxury cruise ship. One night, and the main premise of the book is when Lo is in her cabin, she believes that she hears a body go overboard. She's like, that splash is definitely a body splash. I believe that somebody on this ship just went overboard. Pretty much chaos ensues. It begs the question, which is one of my favorite premises of books, is can I trust my own memory or should I be trusting what other people are telling me? I love that in books, so you can probably already tell how I'm gonna feel about this book. So I don't want to give too much away after that. Pretty much all of that is on the back of the book, so I definitely didn't spoil anything. If I was to give this book a star rating, I would give it a 4.5 out of 5 just because it is so fast paced. It's really easy to follow, but it's also a little bit intricate and pretty interesting in my opinion. I enjoyed the writing style that the cast of characters was laid out so clearly, so you know who you were following at what point and how each person on the ship is interacting with each other and with Lo, which I enjoyed that aspect of it. I think Ruth Ware does really shine with like locked door mysteries. I mean, you see that with Turn of the Key, One Perfect Couple. Although I didn't love that book, it definitely is like a people trapped on an island having to talk to each other all the time and create relationships, and I think that is like her best writing. I felt like as a reader being able to understand the cast of characters kind of made you feel like you were a detective with them on the ship, so it was kind of fun. I do like when thrillers do leave like a bit of like a breadcrumb trail where if you're really reading closely, you probably can figure out a few aspects of what's going to happen, but I still overall was very surprised. I appreciated how Ruth Ware had a flash forward at the end or beginning of each chapter. So you were flashing forward to Lo's situationship Judah, and he was trying to get into contact with Lo. So we're reading the future correspondence as Lo is experiencing the trip. So we're getting little bits and pieces of the future. And I really think that that helps drive the book forward and makes it feel like it has more dimension to it and more suspense to it. I definitely would recommend the book. And I think if you want to get into Ruth Ware, I think she has about 9 or 10 books right now. I think this is a good start. Now we're on to the movie. I have a lot of thoughts on the movie. The movie was by far way faster paced than the book, obviously. I don't know how long, I didn't listen to this on audio, but if I had to guess, this would probably be about a 10-hour audiobook. I understand why the movie had to cut out a lot of parts, but the movie really flips the script on the book. The movie still follows Lo, so we still have the same main character-ish. In the movie, Lo is a like hard-hitting journalism reporter. She's no longer like a travel journalist like she is in the book. And Lo had a bad experience with like a bad informant who unfortunately got hurt, and she's kind of trying to pick herself back. She gets an email inviting her to report on the Aurora and the charity that the Aurora is standing for. So in the movie, the Aurora is actually like a charity cruise, and it ends with a huge charity gala for the owner's wife who has cancer. So they kind of invited Lo to, we know you're hard-hitting journalism, like give our charity a good name and write about us and your experience on the ship and how charitable and great it made you feel. So some non-spoilery movie and book thoughts on the movie to book adaptation. I do think the movie kept the essence of Lo. I do. I think she was made a bit more unapproachable. I feel like she feels a bit more human in the book and more relatable. And in the book, she deals with a break-in. So it's a bit more of like a relatable issue as to why she's so jumpy and scared and freaked out and why people might not trust her because, hey, you just had a break. Maybe you're kind of relating one to the other and making up things in your head and you're having nightmares. However, in the book, she's like an informant who dies because of her. And so she's feeling more like guilt and like sadness. It's a little bit of a different facet of her character. I do feel like the big twists were similar in the movie and the book. However, I do think the movie didn't develop them as much. They weren't as shocking, but that is really difficult because I obviously read the book first, so I knew what I was looking for. I do think the movie removed some large plot lines, and that was an issue for me as someone who had just come off really enjoying the book. I will say something I did enjoy and thought was smart was that they did condense the characters, the cast. You don't really get to understand or know too much about the cast on the ship just because you're always in Lo's interactions, and with the movie being shorter, she has less interactions with each person on the book. The cast of characters on the ship kind of were like third stringers in the movie, whereas in the book I feel like they played a larger part. Something they did do with condensing the cast though was they made Ben, who was like her situationship long ago, was combined with the character of the photographer, and I thought that that was a really smart way for them to condense the characters because the photographer obviously has a role in the book. I actually forget what his name is in the book. The invite for the ship felt way more random in the movie versus where in the book it made sense. You were invited on this ship experience because you are a travel journalist, where in the movie it was a very charity-centric base. I'm going to give my overall recommendation before I get into the spoiler in case you want to stop watching. My overall recommendation would be you actually can't really go wrong either way. I think the movie, if you have 90 minutes to kill, it's great acting, it's fun, it's a quick thriller, it's a little psychological. You're along for the ride with her and you can physically see it. I do think physically seeing it in the movie takes away the shock value and the excitement of how you feel reading the book. So obviously I recommend the book, and I think the book is better than the movie. I think it was difficult to make this book into a movie because there was a bit of intricate detail that was really important. So there was a lot to cover in a short amount of time with a movie length restriction. The movie did feel just like a bit more outrageous than the book did. When I was watching the movie, I was like, this is I don't know. Also, if you were interested, I did watch this with my husband who had not read the book, and he did enjoy the movie and thought it was interesting, but he also thought it was like a little outrageous at some point. And he also kind of clocked the twist, unfortunately. So I thought that that was interesting that it was clocked so easily in the movie compared to the book. All right, last segment of this video is just some spoilery thoughts about the book and the movie. Okay, we're really getting into spoilers though. Like, we're actually getting into spoilers. So I know this book is quite old. So if you, literally my copy looks so old that I thrifted. So if you still haven't read it and you might one day, I do think it's worth the read. So don't watch these spoilers because I thought the spoilery parts were really fun. My overall biggest issue was the ending with the movie. The movie ending of having a charity gala, which doesn't even exist in the book. It was so outrageous. So just to give you up to speed, if you're someone who read it a long time ago and you don't really remember, pretty much a large character and contribution to the twist is the character of Anne. Anne is the husband of the guy who owns the ship. I can't remember his name, but she has cancer and she's dying. And so the husband finds like a look-alike that can impersonate her and sign over important financial documents. Anne is actually the person that is thrown over the ship, and the look-alike is the one who survives on the ship. With that being said, I thought the movie made the twist way more blatant. I think they brought up AI face recognition too often. I didn't enjoy or think it needed to be that like the husband went and found the look-alike. I thought like that was weird. I liked in the book how they had like a consensual relationship and they were close. Like in the movie, it just felt kind of creepy and like she, you know, was being forced against her will. Whereas in the book, it like just, not that it's convincing, it's still outrageous, but it's like, oh, well, she loved him and she wanted to help him and they were having an affair. Like it makes so much more sense to me in the book than the movie. Also, one thing in the book that frustrated me is they talked about two people having break-ins. Lo had a break-in, and then they said the guy in the cabin next to you had a break-in. And I can't remember if they addressed why he had a break-in and why that was normal, but I really did like in the book how like they brought the break-in throughout the whole book, and it was just interesting to see how one isolated event like impacted her whole experience. One thing I didn't like about the movie was you completely lost the character of Jude. Jude is such an important character in the book. He is looking after Lo. He's the one trying to investigate. I think it would have been really fun if they kept that integrity of the book and had Judah in the movie, because then you could flash back to him being like, where is Lo? Where is she? Where is she? And like build that suspense a bit more. Whereas I felt like the movie was just like bang zoom, so rushed. And I think Judah also, I feel like, helped humanize Lo a bit. Like she still had this like love connection, and then it made her connection with Ben not be so like straightforward like it is in the movie. Let's talk about the main twist. When I watched with my husband, he caught it right away because Anne says, I'm not taking my medicine anymore. And then like pretty soon after, you're with the imposter Anne, and she's like, oh, I have to go take my medicine. And he like my husband audibly was like, oh, that's weird. So I was like, oh no, they made it way too obvious in the movie. And even the lookalike aspect, I feel like they made it way too obvious in the movie. I think like that whole dual identity twist like was kind of lost in the movie, just because like you can't, like you're physically staring at them. So like it's different in the book because you can't really see them. So that's what made it more fun and believable in the book. Whereas in the movie, it's like, wait, like I can see, I mean, they did a good job, but like, I don't know. It's a little weird. Also, the last thing I'll say is the ending when like Lo is held at knife point and walks through a crowd of like 200 people and not one person stops her like from dying. It's just like, this is stupid. Like someone could have closed the door. Like, do they really think he was gonna cut her throat in front of 200 people with all of these witnesses? And just like the whole like shooting him on the dock and like, I don't know. The whole charity gala was just like a crapshoot in my opinion. And like the let her talk, I thought was so cheesy. And I just kind of liked the parts where she is trying to get home and like trying to figure out her way home. I thought was like more fun in the book. But yeah, the book overall is just way more realistic to me, which is funny because you would have thought the opposite. You would have thought that the movie was more realistic because they have to physically show you everything. I think if I had gone into the movie without reading the book, I actually might have understood things a lot less and not enjoyed it as much. But anyway, that was my book and movie review. I hope you give this book a shot. And if you did like me doing a book to movie adaptation review, let me know and I can try to do another one. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye!